You're listening to Building a Creative Life. I'm Pam Vale, an artist and writer. This podcast is about the small, often overlooked ways creativity shows up in real life, in what we notice and in what we choose to respond to. Here you'll find conversations and reflections shaped by curiosity, not instruction. No expectations, nothing to master. Just room to pay attention and trust where that leads. Hello, creative friends. If you're lucky, you arrive in midlife with a handful of people who knew you at every stage of life. Childhood friends who knew you before life and societal influences stepped in. Someone who knew you in a pure and simple way, stripped of masks and judgments and expectations. I am so lucky to have several of these relationships gracing my life, but one in particular that is a bit longer and goes further back than the others. I know it's a gift, and I deeply appreciate it. I am so excited to introduce you to a dear friend and fellow creative, Amy Tabor. I think her story and her lifestyle will give you so much inspiration and maybe even permission to find unique ways to express yourself. I had the supreme pleasure of visiting her not long ago. We have known each other since kindergarten in Las Vegas and even lived together in Los Angeles as young adults. We've stayed in touch long distance, have met up different places throughout the years, and watched each other's families grow. One of the things we have a deep shared appreciation for is design and creativity. Amy oozes art and beauty out of every pore, and her home is a testament to her long-term love affair with collecting and appreciating the stories behind objects, to reuse and upcycling, preserving and entertaining. She pushes the boundaries and thinks way outside the box. In fact, with some thrifted fabric and a hot glue gun, she would turn the box into something you wouldn't even recognize. Amy lives in Las Vegas, so some of those garage sales are unlike anywhere else. There are incredible vintage finds, over-the-top pieces from lavish homes, quirky attractions, and even remnants from old casinos. She's fortunate to have access to those things, but she also really works for her finds. People often wonder how to be successful at thrift shops, charity stores, or garage sales. And I think the biggest secret is frequency. You have to go often, and you have to go with an open mind. I like to have a few general items or needs in mind, but it's also great to just go for the treasure hunt. If you can, thrift or yard sale in higher end neighborhoods. You just never know what people are letting go of. But beyond that, make it personal. Think about what you love, specific colors or color families like jewel tones or neutrals, or maybe a theme like coastal or farmhouse or art deco. Think about things that you do. Do you like to throw parties or entertain outside? Think about your lifestyle. Do you have a hobby that needs storage options, or do you cook and set a pretty table? Thinking about what you naturally love and use is one of the best places to begin. And when you're shopping, look for history or good bones. Elements can usually be changed, updated, repaired, altered, or even added to. So look for quality items, pieces that have a story or a history, a good frame to build on. One of my favorite examples from Amy's house is something she made for her television. She created what is essentially a tea cozy for a wall-mounted TV in her beach house. Using a beautiful fabric panel stitched to a backing, she slips it over the television when it's not being used. The fabric was purchased at a thrift shop, but then also spotted on a trip to Vietnam. So there is this double bonus of a built-in travel memory. Now the TV is tucked beautifully away. I also admire how she values family pieces. She may not use something for its original purpose, but she'll find a way to incorporate it into her life. I think sometimes we are too quick to say we don't want things passed down from our parents or grandparents, but it's worth taking a moment to think about preserving family history through objects. Another thing Amy does so well is buying textiles when she finds something she loves. She collects fabrics, textures, and remnants, even if she doesn't know exactly how she'll use them. It's the philosophy of buy what you love and it will eventually find a place in your life. Listen to see if an item speaks to you. I know that sounds crazy, but if you get a gut reaction to something and it's within your budget, get it. The purpose will often reveal itself later. Amy is a master at using things in unexpected ways. Her theatrical flair shows up everywhere. She created a massive dining room table in her front yard. Yes, seriously, in her front yard. It seats 12 or more, and it sits right in front of her house beneath bistro lights where she hosts summer dinner parties al fresco. Why not? It creates community and it creates whimsy. She covered the table with fabric and many coats of polyurethane to protect it. It's dramatic and so unique. Wouldn't you love to be invited to dinner there? One of my favorite spaces in her home is what she calls her fabric closet. I could easily get buried in that closet and would love every minute. It's a treasure trove, and we had fun sifting through yardage and scraps, panels and remnants, talking about what could be done with all of them, about the trips and the treasure hunts to find them. They all tell a story. They all have some kind of history. For you, it might not be fabric. Maybe it's platters or ceramics, quilts, vases, dishes, seasonal decor. It doesn't even matter what the item or collection is. It is more the idea of having a space for your found treasures, an element of importance in your life and access to them, a place where they're valued. Amy also understands the magic of rotating things. She's brilliant at moving objects around, switching lampshades, placing plants inside unexpected containers, removing trim from one object and adding it to another. She repurposes every detail. Even moving a piece of furniture into an unexpected room can give it an entirely new life. An empty birdcage becomes a greenhouse. A pleated scarf becomes table decor. Sheet music becomes wallpaper. An urn becomes a holder for kitchen utensils. The possibilities are endless when you stop seeing objects in an obvious way and start seeing them for what they could become. One story I absolutely love is what I'm calling the Petal Bowl Godwink. Amy coveted these pretty flower-shaped nesting bowls for years, but didn't buy them. She hemmed and hawed and couldn't justify the price at the time. Then, many years later, she was in San Francisco and decided to run into the store where they were from, not thinking they would still carry them after all this time. Well, there they were, displayed right in the front of the shop. Thinking it was a sign, she quickly grabbed them and went to the checkout desk. Would you believe that the salesperson said this particular set was the last one in the entire company? Seriously, it was like it was waiting for her. It was meant to be, and they went home with her. Amy curates experiences in her everyday life, and I am completely there for it. She truly lives a creative life by making ordinary moments feel special, like breakfast in the garden room with real napkins and French music playing. Maybe even wearing floaty vintage caftans just because. Now, you don't need an atrium to make a meal special. Maybe it's simply using the pretty placemat you bought on a trip, or serving yogurt parfaits with fresh fruit in the fancy glasses. And that brings me to another thought. Look for elevated souvenirs when you travel. Amy buys dresses and fabrics and home accessories. And while there is absolutely nothing wrong with magnets, tea towels, or scarves, imagine wearing a dress you bought in another country to a special event. Or serving your toast in a toast caddy you got in Scotland. That was actually me. I got the toast caddy in Scotland. Or leaning against a throw pillow you bought in Greece. Drying off with a towel from a cruise. Wearing the sunglasses you picked up in Italy. I could go on and on. And it doesn't have to be big things. I'm delighted every time I have to jot a note down on a small notepad I bought on the Isle of Skye, or when I use a 99-cent reusable tote bag I picked up in the Cotswolds. Another example is I carry my on-the-go crafty projects in a small fabric tote we got in London celebrating the coronation of King Charles. We had booked that trip long before the coronation date was announced, and just happened to be staying across the street from Buckingham Palace that weekend. Every time I use the tote, those memories come flooding back. Objects become memory keepers. They become stories you get to live with instead of things tucked away in a random cabinet or drawer. Amy's appreciation for collecting probably began early. She is the daughter of Las Vegas politician and neurosurgeon Lonnie Hammergren, who took collecting to a wonderfully obsessive level, and I mean that with love. And while Amy's aesthetic is entirely her own, you can absolutely see that the love of unique objects, fascinating stories, history, and following your own passions was embedded from an early age. I'll include a link in the show notes if you'd like to learn more about her father's remarkable home and collections. And I will also include a link to my written companion article with a peek inside Amy's home, full of photos of some of my favorite Amy collections, including the petal bowls. Finally, my biggest takeaway: find yourself a friend who shares a love of beauty and experimentation. Amy and I were brought together before we even knew what a friend was, but it's never too late to find yourself your own Amy. Thank you for being here. I hope something from today's conversation stays with you in a quiet way. If this episode felt meaningful, you're welcome to follow the podcast or pass it along to someone who might enjoy it. Until next time.